Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked through the massive metal corridors of Valdris Station. The Catharan space station was huge, built for warriors who stood nearly 8 feet tall with dark purple skin and muscles that could crush steel. Marcus felt small here, like a mouse walking through a lion's den. He clutched the datapad containing proof of his salvage find. 3 weeks ago, he'd pulled some ancient tech from a dead moon. The Catharan had paid him to find it, and now he was here to collect his credits. Just business. Get in, get paid, get out. The Catharan barely looked at him as he passed. To them, humans were weak, short-lived creatures who had only reached the stars 200 years ago. The Catharan had ruled this part of space for 10,000 years. They were warriors, conquerors, and they made sure everyone knew it. Marcus entered the trading hall, a vast chamber filled with merchants and soldiers. His contact was supposed to meet him here. He scanned the crowd, trying to spot the merchant who owed him money. Someone slammed into his shoulder. Marcus stumbled, dropping his datapad. He turned to apologize, the words dying in his throat. A Catharan woman stood before him, easily 7 feet tall, wearing armor decorated with crimson markings. Her eyes blazed with anger. "You dare touch me, human." Her voice was like gravel and thunder mixed together. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean," Marcus started to say. Silence. She stepped closer and Marcus saw the curved blade at her hip. The weapon was beautiful and terrifying, covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow faintly. "I am Sarah Cathix, daughter of War Chief Drakmor, champion of the Crimson Talon clan. You have insulted me with your presence." The hall went quiet. Everyone was watching now. Marcus raised his hands slowly. "Look, I don't want any trouble. I'm just here for business." "Too late for that, scavenger." Sarah's hand moved to her blade. "You touched me. In my culture, that demands blood. I challenge you to a duel." Marcus's stomach dropped. He'd heard about Catharan duels. They were brutal, often deadly. "I refuse." "I'm not a warrior." A low growl rippled through the watching Catharan. Sarah smiled, but there was no humor in it. "To refuse is to be marked as prey. Any warrior can hunt you for sport. You will never leave this station alive." She drew her blade and the symbols along its edge flared brighter. "Accept the duel, human. Die with what little honor your kind possesses." Marcus looked around desperately. No help was coming. The other humans in the hall looked away. This was Catharan space, Catharan law. He was alone. "Fine," he said quietly. "I accept." An hour later, Marcus stood in a circular arena deep within the station. Hundreds of Catharan warriors surrounded the pit, filling the seats carved into the stone walls. They wanted to see the human die. Entertainment before dinner. Marcus held a plasma knife, the only weapon he owned. It was designed for cutting through ship hulls during salvage work, not for fighting. Across from him, Sarah Cathix stood relaxed, her curved blade resting on her shoulder. She looked confident. Why wouldn't she be? This was a game to her. "Begin," an older Catharan warrior shouted from above. Sarah moved like lightning. Her blade cut through the air where Marcus's head had been a second before. He rolled aside, his old military training kicking in. He'd served in Earth Defense Force before becoming a salvager. He knew how to survive. But knowing wasn't enough against someone like Sarah. She was faster, stronger, trained from childhood to kill. Her blade danced through the air and Marcus barely blocked each strike. His plasma knife sparked against her weapon, the impact sending shocks up his arms. She was toying with him. Marcus could see it in her eyes. She could have ended this already, but she wanted to give the crowd a show. His foot slipped on the sandy arena floor. Sarah's blade came down and Marcus threw himself backward. The weapon missed his chest but cut a line across his arm. Blood flowed, dark red against his skin. The Catharan crowd roared with approval. Marcus was breathing hard now, his vision starting to blur. He'd lost too much blood. This was it. This was how he died, light years from Earth, from his family, from everything he knew. Sarah circled him slowly. "You fought better than I expected, human. For that, I will grant you mercy. A quick death." She lunged forward, but instead of going for his heart, she aimed for his hand. A ritual cut, Marcus realized dimly. The kind that ended duels without killing. Maybe she did have some honor after all. Her blade sliced across his palm. Everything changed. The symbols on Sarah's blade exploded with light. Not the faint glow from before, but blazing brightness that lit up the entire arena like a sun had been born in her hand. Colors Marcus had never seen before poured from the weapon. And a sound filled the air, not quite music, not quite screaming. That made every piece of glass in the arena shatter. Sarah dropped the blade, stumbling backward. Her eyes were wide, her mouth open in shock. Marcus looked at his palm. The cut was there, bleeding, but beneath the blood something else glowed. Patterns under his skin, like circuits or veins, pulsing with the same impossible colors as Sarah's blade. Around the arena, something incredible happened. Every Catharan warrior stood up at once, moving like puppets on strings. Then as one they dropped to their knees. Hundreds of them, their heads bowed, their hands pressed to their chests in a gesture Marcus had never seen before. What? Marcus tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. Sarah was on her knees too, tears streaming down her face. She looked at him with an expression mixing terror and wonder. Impossible, she whispered. The blood mark. The lost line. An older Catharan pushed through the crowd. He was massive, even for their kind, with scars covering his arms and face. This had to be War Chief Drakmor, Sarah's father. But even he dropped to one knee when he reached the edge of the arena. 10,000 years, the War Chief said, his voice shaking. 10,000 years we have waited, believed you were only legend. But the blade does not lie. It cannot lie. What are you talking about? Marcus looked at his hand again, at the glowing patterns fading back beneath his skin. What's happening to me? Drakmor looked up and Marcus saw something in the warrior's eyes he never thought he'd see from a Catharan. Fear. You carry the mark of the first kings, Drakmor said. The ones who made us, who raised us from beasts to warriors. The architects. You are their heir, human. Their blood runs in your veins. Marcus shook his head. That's impossible. I'm just a salvager. My family are farmers from Earth. There's been no alien contact. Your knowledge of your own history is incomplete, Drakmor interrupted. The architects walked among many worlds, hid their legacy in countless species. Most never awaken. But you have. And now, he gestured to the kneeling warriors. Now we are yours to command, Lost Prince, as we were always meant to be. Marcus looked at Sarah. She was still on her knees, her blade, that impossible weapon, lying in the sand between them. The symbols on it had gone dark, but he could still feel something from it. Recognition, connection, like it was calling to him. I don't want to command anyone, Marcus said. I just want to go home. Too late for that, Sarah said softly. She looked up at him and her expression had changed. Where there had been contempt before, now there was something else. Duty, purpose, maybe even hope. The blade has marked you. All Catharan will feel it given time. The old blood remembers, even when we forget. You cannot run from what you are. Marcus touched his palm, feeling the cut, the blood, and beneath it all, something ancient stirring inside him. Knowledge he shouldn't have. Understanding of the Catharan language he'd never studied. Images of stars and worlds he'd never seen flashing through his mind. What am I? He asked, though he was afraid of the answer. Drakmor stood slowly, and the other warriors followed his lead. But they kept their distance now, treating Marcus like something precious and dangerous all at once. You are the answer, the war chief said, or perhaps the question. Come. There is much you need to know, and the Empire must hear of this. The lost line walks again. Nothing will ever be the same. Marcus looked at his bleeding hand one more time, then at the hundreds of alien warriors watching him, with a mixture of awe and fear. His simple life, his quiet existence as a salvager, was over. Something had awakened inside him. Something that had been sleeping for thousands of years, and somewhere, deep in his bones, in the genetic memory he was only beginning to access, Marcus felt the first stirrings of understanding. His ancestors hadn't been simple farmers. They'd been something else. Something that had shaped entire civilizations. Something that had created the Catharan themselves. The truth was going to change everything. He just didn't know how much yet. The war chief's private chambers were nothing like Marcus expected. Instead of weapons and battle trophies, the walls were covered in ancient texts and holographic displays showing star maps from civilizations long dead. This wasn't a warrior's room. This was a scholar's sanctuary. Sarah stood by the door, her hand resting on the hilt of her blade. The weapon was quiet now, but Marcus could still feel it watching him somehow. Her expression was unreadable, caught between the warrior she'd been trained to be and something else she was struggling to understand. Sit, Drakmor commanded, gesturing to a chair that adjusted automatically to Marcus's smaller human frame. The war chief poured 2 cups of dark liquid from a crystal container. This is Kethava, For my people, it is ceremonial, shared only between family or in moments of great importance. Marcus took the cup with his uninjured hand. His palm was bandaged now, but he could still feel something moving beneath the wrapping. Like his blood had become electric. I don't understand any of this. Then I will tell you what my father told me and his father before him, back through generations of war chiefs who kept the truth alive when others wanted it buried. Drakmor drank from his cup. We Catharan were not always as you see us now. 10,000 years ago we were animals. Smart animals, yes, but still trapped on our world, fighting with claws and teeth over territory and food. Then they came, Sarah said softly from the doorway. The first kings, Drakmor nodded. We did not have a name for them then. We did not have language for what they were. They came from the stars in ships that seemed like magic. They looked at us, savage, brutal, violent, and they saw potential. The war chief activated a holographic display. Images flickered to life above the table. Tall beings, humanoid but not quite human, with features that seemed to shift and change as Marcus looked at them. They wore no armor but radiated power. The architects, Drakmor continued, that is what they called themselves. They changed us. Not just our bodies, though they did that too, made us stronger, faster, smarter. But they changed our very essence, our genetic code. They built instincts into us, drives, purposes. They made us warriors, but warriors with honor. Soldiers, but soldiers who could build as well as destroy. Marcus stared at the images. Something about them seemed familiar, like looking at a reflection in water that wasn't quite right. Why? We never knew. They never explained. They taught us, trained us, gave us technology we could never have developed on our own. They turned us into the greatest military force this sector had ever seen. Drakmor's voice grew heavy, and then they vanished. Just like that? Not quite. There was war first. A war we were not allowed to fight in. The architects faced something terrible, something they never named. We saw it only once. Ships that moved wrong, that seemed to exist in spaces that shouldn't exist. The battle lasted 3 days. Then the architects ordered us back to our home world. They told our leaders that they were leaving, that we would have to stand alone now. And they built things into us. Genetic locks, triggers that would respond only to their bloodline. Marcus looked at his bandaged hand. Like Sarah's blade. Exactly like that. The ceremonial weapons of the oldest clans were architect technology, designed to test bloodlines. If someone with architect DNA was cut by one of these blades, it would recognize them, and we would know them as our creators returned. Sarah moved closer to the table, but no one ever came. Years passed, then centuries, then millennia. The stories became legends. The legends became myths. Most Catharan today believe we achieved greatness on our own. The idea that we were created, shaped, controlled, it threatens everything we've built. But you kept the truth alive, Marcus said, looking at Drakmor. Some of us, the oldest clans, the ones who carried the ceremonial blades, we maintained the traditions even when we didn't fully understand them anymore. We kept the genetic memory alive in our bloodlines, waiting for the day the lost line would return. The war chief leaned forward. We just never expected it to be human. Marcus felt dizzy. My family are farmers. We've been on Earth for generations. There's no alien in our history. No contact with anything beyond our world until we developed FTL drives ourselves. Are you certain? Drakmor activated another display. This one showed Earth, but strange symbols surrounded it. Mathematical formulas that Marcus somehow understood without knowing how. The architects didn't just vanish. They fled, scattered, hid. They seeded their genetic material across countless worlds, buried deep in primitive populations. Waiting. Dormant. Most bloodlines never activated, but a few maintained the potential. Why hide? Marcus asked, though part of him already knew the answer. Those images of impossible ships the war Drakmor had mentioned, something had scared the architects badly enough to make them run. Because they were being hunted, Sarah said, by something that could kill them. Drakmor closed the display. We don't know what. The records are incomplete, destroyed deliberately, but whatever it was, the architects feared it enough to erase themselves from the galaxy. They left only fragments, genetic markers hidden in species across known space, technology locked away in vaults that could only be opened by their bloodline, and us. Their greatest creation, programmed to recognize and serve their heirs. Marcus stood up, the chair scraping against the floor. I don't want anyone serving me. I'm not a king. I'm not anyone's master. What you want doesn't matter. Sarah said, and there was pain in her voice. The moment my blade recognized you, it sent a signal. Every Catharan with the old blood felt it, even if they don't understand what they felt. It's like an itch in their DNA, calling them to you. Within days, word will spread across the Empire. Some will embrace it. Others will see you as a threat to everything they believe about themselves. And some will want you dead. Drakmor added bluntly. The progressive faction has spent the last 1,000 years building an identity around Catharan superiority. The revelation that we're created beings, that our greatness was given not earned, will destroy their worldview. They'll kill you to protect it. Marcus ran his good hand through his hair. This is insane. I came here to collect payment for a salvage job. Now you're telling me I'm some kind of genetic royalty to a warrior species I didn't even know existed until this morning. There's more, Drakmor said quietly. Since the blade recognized you, you've been changing. Haven't you noticed? You understand our language now without translation. You can read our texts, operate our technology. Knowledge is flooding into you from your own genes, memories that belong to your ancestors. Marcus stopped moving. It was true. He could understand every word they said, could read the alien symbols on the displays without effort. More than that, when he looked at the technology around him, he didn't just see what it did. He understood how it worked, why it was designed that way, what principles governed its function. It's like someone else's knowledge is in my head, Marcus whispered. Not someone else's. Your own. The architects encoded their understanding into their DNA, passed it down through generations. Most of it stays locked away, but when triggered, like when my daughter's blade cut you, it begins to awaken. Drakmor stood and placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. It was a gentle gesture, strange from such a massive warrior. I'm sorry this was forced upon you, but you cannot run from it. Your very presence will reshape the galaxy. A chime sounded. Sarah answered it, listened briefly, then turned pale. Father, the Council of Clans is demanding an emergency session. Word has already spread. Faster than I hoped, Drakmor muttered. He looked at Marcus. You need to leave Valdris Station tonight. There will be those who want to claim you, control you. Others who want you dead before you can destabilize the Empire. And still others who simply want to study you like a specimen. Where do I go? Marcus felt the walls closing in. Everywhere in this sector is Catharan space. I'll go with him, Sarah said suddenly. Both men turned to look at her. She straightened, her hand tight on her blade. The weapon chose him. By ancient law, I am bound to guard the bloodline until death. The law hasn't been invoked in 10,000 years, Drakmor said. Then it's time we remembered what we truly are. Sarah's eyes met Marcus's. There was steel in her gaze, but also something else. Uncertainty, maybe. Fear of what this meant for her identity, her people, everything she'd been taught to believe about herself. I am Crimson Talon. My clan has carried this blade through centuries waiting for this moment. I won't abandon my duty now. Marcus wanted to argue, to refuse, but he saw the determination in her face. And more than that, he felt something through the strange connection the blade had created between them. She was as lost as he was, her entire worldview shattered. Everything she'd believed about her, people's greatness revealed to be a gift from ancient beings who'd fled in terror. Thank you, he said simply. Drakmor moved to a wall panel and pressed his hand against it. A hidden compartment opened, revealing data chips and what looked like credit chips. Take these. Enough money to get you far from here. The data contains everything we know about the architects, their history, their technology. You'll need it. What about you? Marcus asked. Won't they know you helped me? I am War Chief. Let them question me. I will buy you time. Drakmor clasped Marcus's shoulder again. You carry a burden you never asked for, but perhaps that makes you perfect for it. The 3 weeks had passed since Marcus fled Valdris Station. 3 weeks of running, hiding, and trying to understand what was happening to him. The changes were getting worse, or better, he couldn't decide which. You're doing it again, Sarah said from the co-pilot's chair. Marcus blinked and looked down. He'd been absently repairing the ship's navigation system, his hands moving without conscious thought, rewiring circuits he shouldn't have known how to rewire. I can't help it. Every time I look at something mechanical, I just know how it works. It's the architect blood waking up, came a new voice from the back of the ship. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo walked into the cockpit, her dark eyes bright with excitement. They'd picked her up 2 weeks ago on a research station. The human xenoarchaeologist had spent her career studying precursor ruins, ancient sites no one could identify. When she'd heard rumors about Marcus, she'd nearly knocked down their airlock door demanding to meet him. The genetic memory is activating, Sarah continued, settling into a seat. Everything the architects knew is encoded in your DNA. It's like having a library in your blood. A library I can't control, Marcus muttered. Last night I dreamed in a language I've never heard. This morning I woke up knowing how to build a fusion reactor from scratch. Fascinating, Sarah said, pulling out her datapad. If we could just run some tests. No tests, Sarah cut in sharply. Every scan we run is a signal others can track. The progressive faction is hunting us. Half the Catharan Empire wants Marcus captured or killed, and the other half wants to worship him, added another voice. Vexnall ducked through the doorway, his massive Catharan frame barely fitting. They'd picked him up a week ago, a warrior from a minor clan who'd been sent to capture Marcus but whose genetic loyalty had activated the moment they'd met. He'd immediately surrendered, offering his blade in service. It had been awkward for everyone. I don't want anyone worshipping me, Marcus said for what felt like the 100th time. Too late, Vexnall replied. He moved to the weapons station, checking their defenses. Word has spread across the Empire. The Lost Prince walks. Some clans have sworn to find you. Others are preparing for civil war. The progressives see you as a threat to everything they've built their identity on. They're not wrong, Sarah said quietly. You are a threat. Your existence proves we're not what we thought we were. Marcus looked at her. Over the past weeks, he'd watched her struggle with what she'd learned. Everything she'd been taught about Catharan superiority had been revealed as a lie. They weren't the galaxy's greatest warriors by nature. They'd been designed that way, built, programmed. Your people are still great, Marcus said. Being created doesn't make you less, doesn't it? Sarah's hand rested on her blade. The weapon's runes glowed faintly, responding to Marcus's presence. Every honor I earned, every victory I claimed, was any of it really mine? Or was I just following programming laid down 10,000 years ago? Before Marcus could respond, alarms blared through the ship. Contact, Vexnall barked. 3 ships dropping out of hyperspace. Catharan military signatures. They found us, Sarah said, gripping her seat. Marcus's hands flew across the controls, and again he felt that strange knowledge flooding through him. He could see the attack patterns the Catharan ships would use before they moved, understand their tactics on a fundamental level, because the architects had designed those tactics and that knowledge was in his blood. Hold on, he said, and threw the broken promise into a maneuver that should have torn the ship apart. But his modifications held, the vessel dancing through space like it was built for this. Weapons fire lit up the void around them. The Catharan ships were fast, aggressive, trying to disable the broken promise's engines. They want us alive, Vexnall observed. They're not shooting to kill. That's because whatever faction sent them wants Marcus for study, Sarah said. She activated the ship's modest weapons. Return fire. Target their sensor arrays. The space battle lasted 7 minutes. Marcus pushed the broken promise through moves that left even the experienced pilots behind them struggling to follow. When they finally jumped to hyperspace, leaving their pursuers behind, everyone was breathing hard. That was too close, Sarah said. How did they find us? We need to stop running, Marcus said suddenly. We need answers. About what? Sarah asked. Marcus pulled up a star chart, his fingers automatically finding coordinates that he shouldn't have known. About why the architects ran, about what they were afraid of. There are facilities, hidden bases where they stored information. I can feel them in my memory, like ghosts of places I've never been. That's the genetic memory, Sarah said. It's showing you architect locations. But Marcus, those sites have been lost for 10,000 years. Even if they still exist, they could be trapped, destroyed, or worse. Or they could have answers, Marcus countered. He brought up coordinates for a system deep in uncharted space. This one, I keep seeing it in my dreams. A facility called... He struggled for the word, felt it arrive in a language older than any living civilization. The Archive of Ending Days, where the architects stored their most important records. Ending Days, Sarah repeated. That doesn't sound promising. No, Marcus agreed. But we need to know what ended. And why? They reached the system 4 days later. The star was old, red, dying. 3 dead worlds orbited it. lifeless rocks that had never known living beings. "There's nothing here," Vexnal said, scanning. "No stations, no structures, nothing." But Marcus could feel it, something calling to him, resonating with the architect blood in his veins. "It's hidden, cloaked or phased somehow. I can—" He moved to the ship's sensor array and began making adjustments. His hands moved without thought, rewiring systems, creating something new. Suddenly the sensors lit up. A massive structure appeared in orbit around the third planet. A station the size of a small moon that hadn't been there seconds before. "By the ancestors," Sarah breathed. "It was waiting," Sarah whispered. "Waiting for someone with the right genetic code to find it." They docked with the ancient station. The airlock opened at Marcus's touch, recognizing something in his DNA. Inside, the lights flickered to life after 10,000 years of darkness. The archive was vast. Endless corridors lined with data storage units and holographic displays. Everything was perfectly preserved, waiting. The group moved through halls that no living being had walked in millennia. Marcus led them deeper, following instincts he didn't understand. Finally, they reached a central chamber. At its heart stood a holographic projector. When Marcus approached, it activated, an image appeared. A figure that looked almost human, but not quite. Tall, elegant, with features that seemed to shift as Marcus watched. An architect. "If you're seeing this," the figure said in a language Marcus understood perfectly, "then you are my descendant. My heir, and I am sorry." The hologram flickered. "We were explorers, scientists, artists. We traveled the galaxy, studying life, helping species reach their potential. We uplifted dozens of civilizations, including the Catharan, who we shaped into perfect warriors. We were proud of our work. We thought we were doing good." The image changed, showing beautiful worlds, thriving civilizations, all marked with architect influence. Then we found them, the hollow ones. The image shifted again and Marcus felt cold. Ships that moved wrong, that seemed to exist in multiple places at once. Entities that weren't quite solid, weren't quite there, but were terrifyingly real. They existed partially outside our dimension, the architect continued. "We didn't understand what they were at first. They seemed peaceful, curious. We tried to communicate, to learn from them, to uplift them as we had others. The hologram's expression became haunted. We were fools. The hollow ones don't think like us. They experience reality differently. To them, consciousness is food. Sapient minds are sustenance. They consume intelligence, drain it, leave empty husks behind." Sarah grabbed Marcus's arm. "My God. We tried to stop them when we understood," the architect said, "but our attempt to uplift them had made them stronger. They could hunt across dimensions now, follow the quantum signatures of living minds. The war that followed broke us. We lost millions. Entire worlds went silent, their populations consumed." The hologram flickered again. "We couldn't win, so we fled, scattered ourselves across the galaxy, hiding our genetic code in primitive species. We placed our knowledge in secure locations like this one. We built species like the Catharan who might protect our descendants. And we erased ourselves from the galaxy, hoping the hollow ones would lose our trail." Marcus felt sick. "Did it work?" "For a time," the architect said. "We sealed the hollow ones in a dimensional prison, bought ourselves centuries. But seals weaken. And when your genetic markers activated, when Catharan blades recognized you as heir, you sent out a quantum signal, a beacon." "No," Sarah whispered. "The hollow ones will have felt it," the architect continued. "They will begin to wake. And when they do, they will hunt you. Through you, they will find others with architect blood. Through them, they will find entire populations to feed upon." The hologram looked directly at Marcus. "I'm sir." The Catharan Empire was burning. Marcus watched the reports flooding in from across known space. Civil war had erupted between the traditional clans who accepted him as lost prince and the progressive factions who saw him as a dangerous lie. Entire fleets clashed over his existence. Worlds chose sides. The greatest warrior civilization in the galaxy was tearing itself apart. "Another battle at Corvin Station," Vexnal reported grimly. "The Third Fleet has declared for you. The Fifth opposes. Casualties in the thousands." "This has to stop," Marcus said, but he knew it wouldn't. The genetic imperatives built into the traditional clans were too strong. They would fight to acknowledge him, and the progressives would fight just as hard to deny him. Both sides believed they were protecting what it meant to be Catharan. You can't stop it by wishing, Sarah said. She stood by the viewport watching stars stream past. This was always going to happen. The moment my blade recognized you, this was inevitable. They were aboard the Broken Promise, now accompanied by 3 other ships. Marcus's quantum broadcast had worked. Others with architect blood had awakened across the galaxy, and some had answered his call. A soft chime announced someone entering the bridge. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo arrived with a tall, elegant being covered in silver scales. This was Zafira, a trader from the Chixari Collective. She'd been selling salvage in a frontier market when Marcus's message had activated genetic markers she'd never known she carried. "The others are ready," Zafira said, in her melodic voice. "Though I still can't believe I'm part architect. My family tree goes back 800 generations. All traders, all Chixari. No alien blood anywhere." "The architects hid well," Sarah said. "They spliced their DNA deep into the genetic code of dozens of species. It only activates under specific conditions. Most carriers never awaken." "Lucky us," Zafira said dryly. Marcus counted the awakened in his head. "Zafira, a human engineer named David from a colony world, a Drexian strategist called Minax, who'd been working as a simple clerk, 2 Velen monks who'd guarded sacred mathematics for generations, never knowing they were actually architect engineering formulas, and his own sister May, who'd arrived 3 days ago with the news that she'd also awakened. 9 people total. 9 against an enemy that had broken an entire civilization. "It's not enough," Marcus said quietly. "It's what we have," came a new voice. Marcus turned to see War Chief Drakmor entering the bridge. The massive Catharan warrior had brought his personal fleet to join them, along with dozens of traditional clans who'd sworn to protect the lost prince. It had made their small group into a proper military force, but it had also made them a target. "Any word from your contacts?" Marcus asked. "The Empire burns," Drakmor said bluntly. "My daughter was right, this was inevitable. But there's worse news. Colonies are going silent. Entire populations just gone. Ships found drifting, crews catatonic. The intelligence networks are calling it the Silent Plague." Marcus felt cold. "The Hollow Ones." "They're waking faster than you predicted," Sarah said, checking her data. "Your quantum broadcast didn't just call the architect bloodlines. It called them too." "Then we're running out of time," Marcus said. "We need to reach the Forge. The Forge of Kings." The name had come to him in dreams, along with coordinates buried deep in Catharan space, in the galactic core. An architect facility where they'd built their greatest weapons. The only place that might have the tools to stop the Hollow Ones permanently. "Getting there is the problem," Vexnal said. "The Forge is in the Crimson Reach, heart of Catharan territory. We'll have to fight through progressive fleet positions the entire way. The traditionalist clans will protect us," Drakmor said. "And how many will die doing it?" Marcus asked. "How many Catharan have to kill each other because of me?" "They die for themselves," Sarah said firmly. "For their identity, their beliefs, their future. You didn't force them to choose sides, Marcus. They did that on their own." But Marcus couldn't shake the guilt. Every casualty report felt personal, like blood on his hands. A alert klaxon interrupted his thoughts. "Contact!" one of Drakmor's warriors called. Multiple ships dropping from hyperspace. "Unknown signatures. Not Catharan?" Vexnal asked. "Not any civilization I recognize," the warrior said, confusion in his voice. "They're moving wrong, like they're not entirely here." Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. He ran to the sensors, and what he saw confirmed his fears. Ships that seemed to exist in multiple places at once, that flickered in and out of normal space. And there was something else. A presence pushing against his mind, hungry and cold. "It's them," he whispered. "The Hollow Ones, they found us. All ships, combat positions," Drakmor roared. "Protect the Lost Prince." The Catharan fleet moved with practiced efficiency, forming a defensive sphere around Marcus's small group. But when the Hollow Ones attacked, it became clear how outmatched they were. The enemy ships didn't just fire weapons, they projected something worse. Beams of twisted spacetime that passed through shields like they weren't there. When they hit Catharan vessels, the crews didn't die. They simply stopped, became empty shells, their consciousness drained away like water from a cup. "They're feeding," Sarah said, horror in her voice. "Consuming their minds." Marcus watched 3 Catharan ships go dark in as many minutes. Hundreds of warriors, brave fighters who'd sworn to protect him, reduced to empty husks. And for what? To satisfy the hunger of beings that couldn't understand why what they were doing was wrong. "We need to run," Zephyra said. "We can't outrun them," Minax the Drexian countered. "They exist partially outside normal space. They can follow us anywhere." Marcus felt the architect knowledge stirring in his blood. There was something there, something about the Hollow Ones, about how they functioned. A weakness maybe, or at least an understanding. "They feed on consciousness," he said slowly, pieces clicking together. "They drain sapient minds. But what if we gave them something else? Something they can't digest? What are you thinking?" Sarah asked. Marcus's hands flew across the controls, accessing systems he shouldn't have understood. The Broken Promise and the other ships in his group all had architect technology now, modifications he'd made without fully understanding why. Now he saw the pattern. The architects knew they'd face the Hollow Ones again, Marcus said. They built defenses into their technology. Quantum static patterns that mimic consciousness but aren't real, like fake food that can't nourish. If we broadcast them, the Hollow Ones might feed on that instead of us, Sarah finished, understanding dawning. "Buy us time to escape." "Do it," Drakmore commanded. Marcus activated the defense systems and a wave of quantum noise flooded space around them. It felt wrong, like consciousness but hollow, empty, a lie wearing the shape of sentient thought. The Hollow Ones' ships hesitated. They could sense something to feed on, but it confused them. These beings thought differently than normal life. They didn't understand deception, couldn't conceive of fake food when they sensed food-like patterns. "Jump," Marcus shouted. Now, while they're confused, the fleet engaged hyperspace drives. Most made it. But Marcus watched 5 Catharan ships get caught by Hollow One beams, their crews lost, sacrificed so others could escape. Sarah placed a hand on his shoulder. They knew the risks. "Doesn't make it easier," Marcus said. They regrouped in the outer reaches, a frontier region where few civilizations traveled. While the fleet made repairs, Marcus gathered the awakened on the Broken Promise. "That was too close," David the engineer said. "We barely survived, and that was just a scouting force. What happens when the main swarm comes?" "We reach the forge," Marcus said. "It's our only chance." "Even if we get there," May said, "what then? Do we even know what weapons the architects left? Or how to use them?" "I know," Marcus said quietly. "The knowledge is in my blood, in all our blood. The closer we get to architect facilities, the more it wakes up. When we reach the forge, we'll know what to do." "Will we?" one of the Velen monks asked. "Or will we just be following more programming, more genetic instructions laid down millennia ago?" It was the question that haunted all of them. How much of their thoughts were their own? And how much was architect code expressing itself through them? "Does it matter?" Zephyra asked. "I mean, everything we are is built on genetics, instincts, drives, abilities. Adding architect DNA to the mix doesn't make us less real. It just makes us more complicated." "She's right," Sarah said. "We're not puppets. We're people who happen to carry ancient genetic memory. What we do with that knowledge is our choice." Marcus wanted to believe that, but he'd felt the power of the architect programming. When it fully activated, it was hard to tell where the ancient knowledge ended and his own thoughts began. A priority transmission interrupted them. It was from Earth. Marcus's heart sank when he saw who was calling. Admiral Chen, a distant cousin he'd never met, commanding Earth's defense forces. "Marcus," the Admiral said, "I don't understand half of what's happening out there. Ancient aliens, genetic royalty, beings that eat minds. It sounds like a bad science fiction novel. But Earth's government has reviewed the evidence. We've seen the silent plague spreading. We've analyzed the data your Dr. Okonkwo sent, and we've made a decision." Marcus held his breath. "Humanity stands with you," the Admiral continued. "We're sending our fleets, every ship we can spare. I know you never asked to be humanity's representative in this mess. Hell, the forge world of Catharum hung in space like a dark jewel. It was massive, larger than any planet Marcus had seen. Its surface covered in ancient machinery that hummed with power that had waited 10,000 years to be used. It's beautiful." May whispered beside him. Marcus nodded, unable to speak. The moment they'd entered the system, the architect knowledge in his blood had exploded. He knew this place, not from memory but from something deeper. His DNA remembered being here, remembered building it, remembered hiding its secrets from the galaxy. And he knew what waited inside. Behind them, the combined fleet gathered. Catharan ships, both traditional and progressive forces that had united when the Hollow Ones revealed themselves as the true enemy. Human vessels from Earth, small but determined, ships from a dozen other species all standing together against the coming darkness. Because the Hollow Ones were coming, Marcus could feel them approaching. A cold pressure against his thoughts. They'd tracked his quantum signature across the galaxy. Soon they would arrive in force. "The forge is activating," Dr. Sarah Okonkwo reported from her station. "It's responding to you, Marcus. To all the awakened. It knows we're here." "Then we don't have much time," War Chief Drakmore said. "My scouts report massive spatial distortions at the edge of the system. The Hollow Ones will arrive within the hour." "An hour," Zafira said. "To save the galaxy?" "No pressure." Marcus turned to face his companions. The 9 awakened stood together, human, Catharan, Chixari, Drexian, Velen, all carrying pieces of the Architect legacy, all ready to finish what their ancient ancestors had started. "I know what we have to do," Marcus said quietly. "The knowledge is clear now. The forge can create a weapon, a quantum resonance that will destroy the Hollow Ones permanently, but it needs a power source." "What kind of power?" David asked, though his expression suggested he already suspected. "A living Architect bloodline," Marcus continued. "Someone has to serve as the template. Their genetic code will be burned across multiple dimensions, creating a resonance that will reach the Hollow Ones in their dimensional refuges. It will erase them from existence." "And the person serving as template?" Sarah asked, her hand on her blade. "Dies," Marcus said simply. "The process unravels DNA across space-time. There's no coming back from it." Silence filled the bridge. "Then we share it," May said, stepping forward. "All 9 of us. Spread the burden like we talked about before." "It won't work," Marcus said, the Architect knowledge absolute in his mind. "The resonance requires a complete pure sequence, someone who's fully awakened, someone like me." "No," Sarah said flatly. "There's no other way." "Then we find one." Sarah's voice cracked with emotion. "The Architects were brilliant. They built you, built all of this. They must have left another option." "They did," came a new voice. Everyone turned as figures appeared on the Forge World surface, teleporting up from some hidden chamber. They were tall, elegant, unmistakably Architect, but they moved slowly like people waking from a long sleep. "Temporal stasis," Sarah breathed. "They've been here all along." The leader of the Architects, an ancient being with eyes that held millennia of memory, regarded Marcus with a mixture of pride and sorrow. "I am Calith. We are the last pure Architects placed in stasis 10,000 years ago to guard the forge until our descendants returned." "You knew we'd come back?" Marcus asked. "We hoped. The genetic markers we seeded across the galaxy were designed to activate only when the time was right. When the Hollow Ones stirred again." Calith moved closer, studying Marcus like a parent might study a child. "You've done well, Inheritor. You found others, united them, led them here. But you're correct about the sacrifice required. The forge needs a pure Architect sequence to power its final weapon." "Then use one of you," Sarah said desperately. "You're pure Architects. Let Marcus live." "We would," Calith said sadly. "But we cannot. The stasis changed us. Our genetic code is locked, frozen. We can't provide the dynamic, living sequence the forge requires. It must be someone whose Architect DNA is active, awakened, flowing with life." "Someone like me," Marcus said. Calith nodded. "You are the first to fully awaken in 10,000 years. Your sequence is perfect, complete. You are exactly what the forge needs." Marcus felt the weight of it settle on his shoulders. Everything had led to this moment. The duel with Sarah, the awakening of his blood, the journey across the galaxy. All of it had been moving toward this single choice. "How long do I have?" he asked. "The Hollow Ones will arrive soon," Calith said. "We must begin preparations immediately." "No," Sarah said again. She drew her blade, the runes blazing with light. "I won't let you do this. There has to be another way." "There isn't," Marcus said gently. "Then we find one. You're not Architects, none of you." Sarah looked at Calith, at the other ancient beings. "You created my people to be warriors, gave us strength and honor, then ran away when you faced an enemy you couldn't beat. You left us to figure out what to do with the gifts you gave. Well, here's what we figured out. We don't give up. We don't accept defeat. We find another way." Her words hung in the air. Marcus saw something shift in Calith's expression. The Catharan were always our finest creation, the ancient architect said. Not because of your strength, but because of your spirit. Perhaps. He turned to the other architects. They seemed to communicate silently. Then Calith looked back at the group. There might be another option, a modification to the forge itself. If we combined your genetic sequences, all 9 awakened plus our own locked codes, we might create a composite template. It would require each of you to give a piece of yourselves, burning away portions of your architect heritage. You would survive but changed, diminished. How diminished? Minax asked. You would retain your skills, your knowledge, but the raw power of your architect blood would be reduced. The genetic memory would fade. You would be more like your base species than architect. So we'd be normal, David said. Just regular people. Is there a chance it would work? Marcus asked. Yes, Calith said. If you all contribute, if you all sacrifice parts of yourselves, together you might form a strong enough template. Marcus looked at his companions. At May, his sister, who'd followed him into danger without hesitation, at Zephyra, who'd abandoned her safe life as a traitor, at the Velen monks, the Drexian strategist, the human engineer, all of them awakened by his call. All of them here because of him. I won't ask you to do this, he said. You're not asking, May said, stepping forward. We're choosing. All of us. The others nodded, moving to stand beside her. But Marcus carries the largest burden, Sarah said. His awakening was complete. His sacrifice will be greatest. No, Marcus said. We share it equally, or nothing works, Sarah interrupted. She turned to Calith. What if we added something else to the template? Something that connects to all Catharan, that carries its own power? She held up her blade, the weapon that had started everything. The ceremonial talonfang that had recognized Marcus, that had activated his bloodline. This blade was forged by architects, Sarah continued. It carries your technology, your programming. It's connected to every Catharan through our genetic imperatives. If I give it to the forge, if I sacrifice the connection it represents, would that help? Calith studied the blade. It would. The weapon carries pure architect code, meant to command and protect the bloodline. Adding it to the template would distribute the burden further. Marcus would still sacrifice more than the others, but he would survive. You all would. But you'd lose the blade, Marcus said to Sarah. The genetic connection to your ancestors, the imperatives that have defined Catharan culture for 10,000 years. Your people would be free, but you'd lose something precious. Sarah smiled. It was a human gesture, one she'd learned from him. We'd lose our chains. Maybe that's what we need. To choose our own path instead of following programming. You taught me that, Marcus. You showed me that being created doesn't make us less. It's what we do with our creation that matters. She placed the blade in the forge's central receptacle. The runes flared one last time, then began to fade as the weapon dissolved, its essence joining the template. Everyone to the forge, Calith commanded. We don't have much time. They descended to the planet's surface, to a massive chamber at the forge's heart. Ancient machinery hummed around them, technology beyond anything the modern galaxy had achieved. At the center stood 9 pedestals, arranged in a circle around a larger platform. Each of you takes a position, Calith instructed. When the process begins, you'll feel your architect heritage being drawn out, burned into the template. It will hurt, but you must hold on until it's complete. Marcus climbed onto the central platform. Around him, his companions took their positions. May gave him one last look, tears in her eyes but determination on her face. See you on the other side, brother. See you there, Marcus replied. Above them, space began to tear. The hollow ones were arriving, their impossible ships bleeding through dimensions. The Catharan and human fleets engaged them, buying time. Now, Calith said, and activated the forge. Pain exploded through Marcus. It felt like his DNA was being unraveled strand by strand. His genetic code,